Listo, ya estamos en vivo. Listo. Oficialmente estamos en FESPO 2020 virtual. En que esté aquí, mientras habla bien no le bajas y cuando ya los manes, pues.
Au.
¿Qué? Así. ¿Qué? Debería estar apagado. Ajá, pues sí.
Muy buenos días y bienvenidos a la edición número 57 del Festival de Música Religiosa de la ciudad de Popayán. Este año abrimos nuestras puertas a través de la virtualidad en www.fespo.org y también en nuestra señal, en nuestra fanpage, Corporación Festival Música de Popayán. Ahí pueden también ver nuestra programación y damos entonces abierta. El Festival de Música de la ciudad de Popayán es un evento apoyado por el Ministerio de Cultura en el programa. También agradecemos a nuestro aliado, la Fundación Universitaria de Popayán. Desde entonces, la agenda académica contará con la participación de estudiantes que se entre en el correo académico@fespo.org. También contaremos con la traducción simultánea de Caragredo desde la ciudad de Viena, en Austria. Para esta ocasión contaremos con el maestro Erlu, quien desde los 6 años inició su carrera artística en el piano, su aprendizaje y en el recibió Rachmaninoff en Turquía, su lugar de nacimiento. En el 2008 se hizo acreedor del Premio de Londres y, por supuesto, empezó a desarrollar su carrera como música de cámara junto con su trío, la camareta de Arnold. Demos entonces la bienvenida.
Good afternoon, Master Mr. Roy. Do you hear me good?
Yes, I do. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Thank you very much in FESPO for joining us in this virtual version of our 57th Festival of Religious Music of Popayán. We have guests joining us in 2 of our platforms, FESPO.org and our Facebook page, Corporación de Música de Popayán. You're very welcome to start then.
Thank you for having me. So will the first student be joining us?
Sorry?
Will the first student be joining us?
Yes, right
Yes.
now.
Great. Hello. Okay, so who is starting this morning?
Vamos a empezar ahora, dice.
And perhaps just introduce the piece that you would like to play.
Por favor, presenten la pieza que quieren, que van a tocar ahora.
Good morning. Voy a presentar la sonata en do mayor KB 545 de
Sonata.
Mozart.
It's the Mozart Sonata in C major
Okay.
from Mozart. Okay.
Buenos días, yo voy a presentar la sonata Opus 79 de Beethoven en Sol mayor.
She's presenting the Opus 79 from Beethoven in D major.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Juliana Isabel Lupanitas, and I present the invention number 1 of Johann Sebastian Bach.
Okay. Thank you. It could actually be worth, I will just collect some scores because I have them here. If you give me 30 seconds.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So who would like to start?
¿Quién quiere empezar?
So Mozart?
I would like to start.
Okay. Bravo. Okay, just a few things. So this is probably, yes, I'll do maybe one sentence or two sentences at a time.
Thank you.
So this is probably one of Mozart's most well-known sonatas, and for many reasons, I think anytime you play something that's so well-known, it's difficult because you're following, you know, lots of people that have played it, and there's traditions to playing this music. But I think you did a very good job. I would say the tempo is good. Allegro, I feel like it could be a touch quicker, especially when you started, but I think you did increase a little bit of speed as you went. Just some general things. I think after the first sort of paragraph, suddenly we're in a different key. And I think you played very straightforward, very, very confident, but I think the music is slightly more unsure. To go from this, it should feel like the listener is not quite sure what's coming, even though everyone knows because it's been played a million times. So I think that's one important thing. Do you want to translate as we go?
Yes. ¿Te quedó claro lo que trató de decirte en cuanto al tiempo?
Sí, está claro.
Vale, te decía que es una de las sonatas probablemente más conocidas de Mozart y de las más difíciles de tocar también, y que tiene es un reto muy grande porque a pesar de que es muy conocida, la gente trata de seguir lo que él hizo. Entonces, ahí está lo que es complicado. Dice que lo tuyo estuvo muy bien tocado. En general, lo que tiene que decirte son cosas generales, como después de la primera estrofa, hay en el tono hay un cambio donde se adivina qué viene. Hay que tratar de hacerlo que quede un poco, que no se adivine a pesar de que todo el mundo sabe de qué se trata o qué sigue, que sea una sorpresa.
De acuerdo.
Okay, can go on.
And then I would say sometimes the articulation of the different hands could be more varied. So for example, if you look at bar 5 to bar 8, in the left hand, I would imagine something more like winds. Yours was a little bit long and maybe slightly lazy. I think it's nicer if we have a clearer articulation. And then the same thing in bar 10. I would avoid doing a very good legato because I think I would imagine something like a bassoon with a very clear articulation, especially as we get to the end of the phrase. And then bar 18. I think you could maybe practice this slowly. Because I think there's more interest between the lines. It sounded very, it sounded a little bit same throughout each harmony. But I think each one is very beautiful. And And you can hear sometimes they open and sometimes they're closing. So I think if you play slowly and listen to how each harmony relates to the previous one, that passage could be a little bit more interesting, I think.
Te voy a resumir lo que dijo. En las 5, la 8, la 10, en la articulación debe ser más suave, como más, debe deslizarse un poco más entre nota y nota. Y en la 18 suena muy plano. Dice que disfrutes el cambio de las subidas y las bajadas de las notas.
Okay. Yeah, so left hand. It will be a nice contrast to the... and also, if you think about the whole first 12 bars, we have a very simple 4-bar phrase to begin with. A 2 and a 2. And then suddenly we go on this journey that's a little bit longer. Where the music is just searching, but by the time we get to bar 10, 11, 12, the feeling of the beat should be faster. After having these long lines, we have everything is doubling in speed. And in bar 11, the harmony changes every beat. So it should feel like we're reaching some sort of climax as we get to bar 12. Do you want to play just the opening again?
Yeah. Dice que para resumirte, que empieza corto y de repente se introducen como ese camino donde empieza a ser un poco más largo, ¿no? Y cuando llegues a las 10, 11 y 12, el ritmo debe acelerar, que es como que en toda la pieza lo que se debe entender es como que estás en un camino hacia un clímax, que va subiendo y va acelerando. Okay.
And one other thing which I think I heard, but I'm not completely sure because of the video, was in bar 25. I think the trill sounds better if you start on the B instead of the A. So not on the note, but on the upper note. Did you start on the note?
Yes,
I think it's more fitting with the classical tradition to start on the upper note, usually. Not always. I think sometimes when you're coming to a trill from above, it makes more sense to start on the note. But in this case, we're coming from below. So, I think it has a nicer shape to start from the upper.
Ajá, te resumo para los demás también que sugiere empezar en sí y no en mi. Lo tradicional es empezar con la nota alta. Okay.
Good, and I think the development section, it can be even stronger, actually. If we compare to the material we've had so far, everything's been very sunny and bright, and suddenly we have this dark G minor. And I think it can be reflected in the sound a little bit more. Maybe you were doing it and I didn't hear through the headphones, but I think it can be even stronger.
Dice que lo puedes hacer más fuerte, como por ejemplo, que no está seguro en qué nota empezaste o si lo escuchó bien, pero que puede ser más fuerte, como por ejemplo el sol, dijo G, ¿ok?
Okay.
Yes, and I mean, all of the semiquavers were very good. I think if it's possible to make the scales sparkle even more, sometimes I find it useful to, when I'm playing a scale, to slightly pull the fingers. So each note has a little bit more of a click, you know, instead of... I mean, you want the overall thing to be smooth, but I think it's nice if every little note has a slight bite to it. So sometimes, yeah, it's useful to think of pulling the fingers.
El consejo que te da al final es que él lo hace porque lo ayuda mucho deslizar los dedos como entre las notas. como esta sensación como de deslizarse, de alarlo, ¿no? Hacia ti.
I have something to say there. I find that left hand is much harder to make that. Like, o sea, eso que dice el de sacar los dedos.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You mean on the pulling?
Yeah.
Yes, me too. I think that's very normal. I think it has to be practiced, even in a slow tempo. You can practice just doing the movement slowly, or you could practice it just 3 or 4 notes at once. But it's very normal, I think, for pianists, even left-handed pianists, to feel like their left hand is slightly less strong than their right hand. But with practice, it will improve, for sure.
El asunto es que dicen que la mano izquierda es un poco más difícil de deslizar, pero el maestro dice que es súper normal, que a él también le pasa, que incluso los zurdos tienen problemas con eso, pero que es cuestión de práctica.
And sometimes I find it useful to, if I feel like my right hand does something better than my left hand, I do them both, one after the other, and I compare. And I try to teach my left hand what my right hand does better, if that makes sense.
Cuando él siente que la mano derecha puede hacer algo mejor que la izquierda, lo que hace es compararlas y decirle a la mano derecha que le enseñe a la izquierda. Entonces, cuestión de práctica.
But it's very normal to have the way music is written for the piano, much more material is given to the right hand, so it's normal for the right hand to become more developed. So we always have to work on the left hand and make sure it's not lagging behind too much.
El consejo es hacer que la mano izquierda practique mucho porque hay mucho más material para la derecha, entonces la izquierda se ha quedado un poquito como sin trabajo, entonces hay que hacerla trabajar y aprender.
Great. Was there any other question you wanted? Sorry?
Should we go with the next?
Yes, yeah. Should we have some Beethoven?
¿Quién quiere seguir, chicos?
Yeah.
A mí me gustaría ir. ¿Comienzo?
Yeah.
Bueno.
Very nice. Okay, so this is one of Beethoven's smaller sonatas, Opus 79, so we're in his middle period. Do you know the sonatas either side of this one?
Que si conoces las sonatas que están con estas también.
¿Las sonatas que están junto a esta?
Sí.
No las conozco muy bien.
Okay, he
Las
wrote.
Pero sí sé que junto a esta sonata pues estuvo en el periodo intermedio de Beethoven y estuvo junto a la sonata del emperador. Eso sí lo sabía.
She has notion about it.
She had, sorry?
Perdón, estuvo junto al emperador, concierto emperador.
Oh, the Emperor Concerto is around. Yes, around this time. And Les Adieux as well. The one after this is incredible, and the one before this is short, also 2-movement sonata in F sharp. But this one is, I would say, rather simple for Beethoven in this period compared to the two either side of it. You're playing it very well. I think the left hand in general, you could be a bit more careful not to sound too noisy. It sounds sometimes too much. It's a little bit too much, I think. The forte he writes at the beginning, I would think forte, very much forte in the melody. Dum bim bom bi da da di da da di da da da. And then this, I would think more mezzo forte. Just so that you have this brightness without feeling like it's struggling against something. I think this music is very easy and simple, and it shouldn't feel like it's fighting. Sometimes in Beethoven you have a fight from the very beginning, but I think this is not like that. And also the shape of this. It's such a beautifully crafted phrase, and I think sometimes it's not quite shaped carefully enough. It sounds a bit. Maybe you're doing it and I don't hear, but it sounds a little bit flat instead of showing the shape. He ends on this appoggiatura. So the first note is not part of the harmony. I think it's important to hear all of those details, especially when the melody is in the left hand. We were talking about how the left hand is often not as good as the right hand, and I think it needs a little bit more attention when it's in the left hand. And then these phrases with the crossed hands, I think, they often come in groups of 3 or 4. So I think it mustn't sound too much like the same bars happened with copy and paste, you know? You should feel like there's a line from the very first to the last repetition, and then the next one is a new cell. So think in longer terms, I think. If you think bar by bar, then we lose sight of the structure a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so did you want to translate?
Yes. Bueno, dice que esta es una de las piezas de Beethoven que es contra todo lo que se pueda pensar de las piezas de Beethoven, una de las más simples, pero que al ser de él y de este tiempo, la gente tiende un poco como a ponerse nerviosa antes de tocarla, pero que en general lo has hecho muy bien. Dice que debes tener cuidado un poco con que que las notas suenen más como juntas mientras las tocas, que no suene muy como a muchas notas, sino más como a una melodía seguida. Que cuando termines la primera frase, dice que no sabe si lo escuchó bien porque pues, estamos online, pero que hay unas que se hacen con la mano izquierda, que es cuestión de práctica, lo que ya dijo antes. Y cuando terminas la primera repetición, después de esa, tiene que entenderse que la que sigue es la otra, que en general hay que ser un poquito como más cuidadosos con la definición de las notas. ¿Te queda claro? ¿Quieres hacerle una pregunta?
No, sí, está bastante claro.
Vale. Okay, you can go on.
Okay, and I just have a question. in general, when you have half an hour to practice this movement, what do you normally do?
En media hora, cuando normalmente tú tienes media hora para practicar esos movimientos, ¿qué es lo que normalmente haces?
Creo que en la hora lo que más se me dificulta es como un movimiento de rotación aquí en la mano izquierda. Y creo que sí, también como por los nervios, sí se me descontroló aún más ese movimiento y creo que es por la tensión que hago en la mano izquierda. Entonces esa tensión hace que se descontrole aún más y que no, pues no tenga tanta simetría con la mano derecha. Entonces sí, estudio mucho los movimientos de rotación y también trato de estructurarlos. Entonces trabajar estructuralmente como por ejemplo dónde están los bajos de Alberti, donde está este movimiento de rotación, las melodías que se repiten, entonces trato de estudiarlo de un modo estructurado como por parte.
She starts with the rotation of the left hand, which is what is harder for her. And now it was just a little bit nervous, so that's why it sounded like tense, like the tension of the hand was passing to the notes.
Yes.
But what she's trying to do is structuring the notes. This is what she's engaged with the structures.
Okay, that's very good. I completely understand the added tension, especially when you play for someone, and how it can affect the sound. My best solution with dealing with tension, personally, in the practice room is to play things very slowly. Because if you play slowly, you have much more time to concentrate on your body and exactly what the body is feeling. And if you do, say, 1 hour practice on a section very slowly, I think that really helps when you take the speed back up, because suddenly things that might have felt difficult before, you've had time to put under like a microscope. And I find often the tension is much less after you've done quite a lot of slow work. I was noticing your scales in the left hand from bar 24 were not quite as good as the ones in the right hand. I would practice all of that very slowly. I mean, I can't remember who said it once, but when asked, how slowly should I practice? I think a good answer was as slow as it takes for something to feel easy. So if it feels difficult, then you're going too fast. And that tempo will change from day to day. Some days things will feel more difficult and some days they will feel more easy. But if you're constantly pushing against something that feels difficult, then it will probably not solve the problem. So you want to try to make it so that your arms and fingers feel like they're doing something easy. And sometimes that takes some time, but I would recommend a lot of slow practice, basically. I mean, I would say most of my practice, even now, is done very much under the tempo that I perform. Just so that you have freedom and a bit more time to concentrate. Another way of looking at it is, if you're walking down a street, you will notice certain things. If you're maybe going by bike, you'll notice a little bit less. And if you're going by car, you're going to notice maybe one or two things. So the more quickly you pass through the terrain, the less you can pay attention to, because we only have a certain amount of bandwidth. So yeah, take your time and go through things slowly. And you will also find much more beauty. Like I was talking about this first phrase. There's so much beauty in those 7 or 8 notes that we have to hear it, even in the real tempo. It's not good enough to just play the notes. I think we have to hear every connection between every note and every turn that in the shape of the music. And it applies to all music, but especially what we've heard so far, Mozart and Beethoven, where so much of the music is so vocal. It's important not to sound like a pianist. Sorry, I hope I didn't go on too long.
Okay, I'm gonna just summarize it very fast. We have 10 minutes left for the rest. Te voy a traducir rápidamente en general lo que dijo. Dice que entiende la tensión en la mano izquierda y los nervios. Es súper normal que se pasen a las notas. Te da un consejo personal, y es que cuando él tiene este tipo de problemas, practica despacio, muy despacio. Y la pregunta es, ¿cuán despacio tiene que practicar esos movimientos? Y la respuesta es hasta que sea fácil. Si sientes que es difícil, más despacio. Esa es la medida que él tiene para cuando él ya logra, cuando ya ha logrado dominar el movimiento y se le hace fácil, ya está, ya sabe que puede seguir. Dice que tengas cuidado con la línea 24, que no se escuchó tan suave como la de la derecha, pero que es normal porque termina en la izquierda. Dice que pongas un ejemplo en la cabeza, por ejemplo, cuando vas bajando por una calle, si bajas en bicicleta, notas algunas cosas. Si bajas en carro, notas menos. Y si bajas a pie, vas a notar todo. Que se trata de que estés en cada detalle de las cosas hasta que se te hagan a ti fácil. Podemos continuar entonces con la última. Tenemos 10 minutos. We have 10 minutes left, so we're going to do it right now.
I didn't quite catch the piece that I'm listening to, but I will listen. Yeah. Excellent. No, very, very good. Well done. How long have you been working on this?
Es que no escuché.
¿Cuánto tiempo llevas haciendo esto?
Hace...
¿Cómo?
Voy apenas 4 años tocando piano.
Sorry, I missed that.
4 years.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, it's very beautifully played. I think you're shaping the lines very nicely. It looks like your technique is strong. I would perhaps sometimes look for an opportunity to make a different articulation. I was talking before, to not make every line sound too similar. But I think you're going down a very good path with this. So I don't have a lot to say. I think it sounds very good.
Dice que sonó muy lindo, que lo hiciste excelente, que tienes una técnica muy fuerte, que el único consejo que te puede dar, porque no tiene mucho que decir, es la articulación. Lo que dijo antes también, como tratar de que no se oiga tan parejo, pero que estás en un muy buen camino.
Okay.
And could I ask you the same question of what do you do when you sit down to practice if you have half an hour on this piece?
Te pregunta lo mismo, ¿qué haces en media hora cuando puedes practicar? ¿Qué es lo primero que haces?
Pues por el momento, cuando estoy practicando, tiendo a tener un poco de problemas al momento como de querer pasar de muy lento, ya lo he practicado muy lento, a pasar al tempo real. Algunas veces que algunas piezas son rápidas, entonces ahí se me dificulta porque no sé, siento que pienso mucho, pero ya me quedo como que no sé qué más hacer, la verdad. Ese es como mi mayor problema ahora.
She said she's having a little trouble with passing from slow to fast. this is she's right now a little trouble with the fact that she doesn't feel that it's going smoothly from too slow, from very fast. So that
Yeah,
she's concentrating now.
sometimes it can be a problem because something that might feel, I was saying earlier, to do things where they feel easy enough. But sometimes you increase the tempo and you realize that something you were doing doesn't work in a faster tempo. But I think your tempo sounds good. It sounds natural to me. I don't think you have there's no big technical problem. So I think it sounds fine, basically.
Okay.
Sí, tu velocidad está bien, que no te preocupes mucho por eso, es simplemente cuestión de práctica, pero está muy bien, suena muy natural.
Okay.
I would think always, to all three of you, I would say to think as much as possible, if an orchestra was playing it, or if a string quartet was playing the piece you're playing, how would it be different? And how would each line have a different character? Because it's so easy, we're just one person sitting at this instrument, which can be quite mechanical. You know, it's hammers hitting strings. And sometimes we don't have the same connection to every note as a violinist or cellist or horn player. So I think it's so important to use your imagination and think of every phrase as which instrument could this be and how would they play it? How would I sing it? Sometimes the best way to play the piano is imagine how you would sing something. And you will find a much more natural way of playing.
Okay.
El consejo para los tres es que se imaginen cómo suena la pieza en otros instrumentos. Incluso el mejor consejo es cómo sonaría cantado, cómo cantarían ustedes esa pieza para que tenga más carácter. Porque dice que a veces cuando están en una orquesta se siente todo como muy plano. Tienen que como buscar otro tipo de dimensiones para darle carácter a la pieza. Es un consejo para los tres.
Okay.
Great. Did you have any other questions?
No, neither.
Or anybody? Or was there somebody else? You said 4 people. I'm a bit worried I spent too much time.
Quería preguntar, ¿el qué aconsejaría en el caso de que uno tenga 30 minutos para estudiar? ¿Cómo aconsejaría estudiar en esos 30 minutos?
Now she goes back with the question, what is your suggestion for 30 minutes rehearsal?
Ooh, it depends. I mean, it depends what you need to work on. In general, for myself, I never start with something that will injure myself. So I don't start with the most difficult thing. But if I'm working on a piece, I will start with something gentle, and then target 1 or 2 things in half an hour. If you try to cover everything in half an hour, you won't really cover anything. So I think it's important to be very specific with picking 2 or 3 things that you can work on and really trying to make progress in those things rather than just playing through the piece, getting to the end, not really with an aim of what you're trying to improve. So I think it's important to set yourself very short-term aims of things that you can improve. And those short-term aims will add up over the course of a week or a month, and you will get big improvements. Whereas if you just repeat, the whole thing of you don't become an Olympic swimmer by going up and down the swimming pool every day 100 times. You have to specifically target things that you're trying to improve. So whether it's left hand compared to right hand, or making articulation clear, or shaping something in a specific way, it should always be with full intention and never just playing without thought.
Thank you. El consejo que les da es que utilicen esa media hora en concentrarse en lo que más se les está dificultando, pero empezar con cosas pequeñas, con objetivos pequeños. No traten de hacer media hora todo, solamente pequeño y con pasos corticos, como un entrenador, como un deportista de talla grande, igual, solamente pasos pequeños poco a poco. Dice que nunca empezaría con algo que le quede muy grande, solamente pasos chiquititos con intención. Esa es una palabra clave que dijo, intencionalmente corrigiendo los errores. Yeah, thank you very, very much, Master, for joining this session. I just have to close here with you and go past to the studio in Popayán at this moment. Muchas
Okay.
gracias por su participación
Thank you so
y
much.
en el estudio en Popayán. Bye, thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Agradecemos a cada uno de los asistentes a este taller y también a nuestra traducción simultánea a cargo de Carolina Agredo en la ciudad de Viena. También, por supuesto, a nuestro maestro Erdem Miseroğlu, quien será el encargado de estar en el concierto de apertura hoy a las 7 en punto de la noche, junto al maestro Michael Petrov. A continuación tendremos nuestra clase y nuestro taller de violonchelo a las 10 de la mañana con el maestro Michael Petrov y a las 11 de la mañana el taller sobre el tango, música instrumental y vocal. Les recordamos también que a las 5 de la tarde estaremos dando inauguración al taller y la exposición del maestro Guillermo Cárdenas en una exposición interactiva 360 grados. Nos vemos en 10 minutos y muchísimas gracias por hacer parte de esta edición del 57 Festival de Música Religiosa de la ciudad de Popayán.